you look at the copies or the historical documents. Well, to my surprise, the New Testament, there are no original manuscripts in Aramaic, which is the language of Palestine during the time of Jesus. There are no documents in Hebrew, which he was a Jew, and they preserved their messages prior to and everything in Hebrew. So we have nothing in Hebrew, nothing in Aramaic. The only documents we have are in Greek and later in Latin. And we have 10,000 copies of each one of those books, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Yet no two copies are identical. That is something you can believe and explain, but it wasn't a very strong proof, in my opinion. Quran is in Arabic. It's in the language of the prophet. It can be dated back to the time of the prophet. It's been written down and memorized since the time of the prophet. So its historicity is very simple. So as I read more pamphlets of Deedat, one of them was Muhammad in the Bible. Why don't you believe in him? I'm like, I've been to church my entire life. I have talked to people, listened to people. I've never heard his name mentioned once. I don't see him anywhere in this Bible. And each time I compared the two, I found myself more favorable to Deedat's explanation than the Christian explanation. It becomes, in my opinion, overwhelmingly conclusive that the Bible from Genesis to Revelations talks about this prophet. It mentions a prophet will come from where he came, what he did, how everything that's relevant in the prophet's life is in the Bible. So I found that very, one, troubling, but two, it's like, maybe I'm the confused Muslim. I now have probably 50 to 100 verses in the Bible that are very just clear. It has to be the Prophet Muhammad. HMD in Hebrew, which would be similar to Arabic, it'd be Ahmed. The Ahmed of all nations will come, and he will do, his house will be greater than the former, which is switching from Jerusalem to Mecca. It calls in Deuteronomy 32, 1 through 3, it says, the God came from Sinai, dawned from Seir, and shined forth from Mount Paran. Okay? So if God came from Sinai, that's a direct reference to Moses. If he dawned from Seir, Jesus' ministry was 3 years in Palestine. Very clear who that's referring to. Who shined forth from Mount Paran? Okay, who might that be? Well, where is Paran? And people argue about this all the time, but it's abundantly clear in the Bible. It says that when Abraham took Hagar and her son Ishmael out and left them in the wilderness of Paran, and he grew to be an archer, and then, so where is Paran? Mecca. Where did the prophet come from? Paran. Did he come with 10,000 saints and a fiery law? Yes. The Quran says they knew Muhammad better than, or they would recognize Muhammad easier than their own son. It's because the revelations that have been revealed were so clear, so concise, so perfect that you would have to be ignorant of them to reject him. So then it became an issue of, well, still, that Jesus is so overwhelmingly profound in Christianity. I mean, he is the religion. I mean, the religion is about him and it is directed through him. So as a Christian, you're thinking, how can I give up Jesus and do anything else? That just doesn't commute. You can't do that. So then I learned, well, another book that Deedat wrote was Jesus, a prophet of Islam. And I'm like, no, he isn't. He's a Christian. So when it got down to that question, it's like, well, okay, now it's very clear. These two religions are almost identical, except for salvation. How do you get to heaven? Is it belief that Jesus is God and died for your sins? Or is it Muslim where it's belief in one God? So I just read what Jesus said. In the Bible it says, well, the Father is greater than I. I, Jesus, of mine own self, I don't do anything. Why do you call me good? There's none good but the Father. So I'm reading Jesus like, he seems to be denying it over and over and over again. Now the apologetics are that it wasn't time to reveal himself, but obviously he was asked many times, who are you? What are you here for? And he answered them, prophet and nothing to do with, my Father who, he taught us to pray, our Father who art in heaven. On the cross, my God, why did thou forsake me? All of that just shouted, I'm not God. Right? So then I'm thinking, okay. I ended up being convinced that the Bible ordered me to follow the Prophet Muhammad. So I went to a mosque. So yeah, I'm at the masjid. It's locked. So I just sat down on the curb thinking, a car drives up, right? So I'm like, oh, good. And gets out of his car and he's walking up and he says, can I help you? I said, yeah, I'm here. I want to become a Muslim. And he opens the door and it was time for Salah. So he invites me in. So after taking my shahada,
Ashhadu
alla
alla
ilaha
ilaha
illallah
illallah
wa ashhadu
wa ashhadu
anna
anna
Muhammadan
Muhammadan
Rasulullah.
Rasulullah.
Alhamdulillah. Good.
Terima kasih. Terima kasih.